And helping us to dig deeper, we're joined by Chang Jun Yan, Assistant Professor of the Military Studies Program and US Program at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Prof. Chang, welcome. First, Vietnam characterizing this visit as a sort of returning of favors to Russia. But what does Russia want, and how important is it that Putin gets out the message that, hey, we're not isolated, we have allies?
Right, thank you. So clearly, as the previous session highlighted, and what my other colleague Yan's story had highlighted, it is about demonstrating that Russia still has friends. So if you remember, the previous weekend, the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum was also held. Okay, and that was followed by the Ukraine summit before Putin's visit to North Korea and then going on to Vietnam. So it is important to demonstrate that Russia still has different friends outside of the West, okay, and not just China alone. What Vietnam wants is pretty much to show, right, that ties with Russia are still cordial, right, and generally Vietnam is expected to play both sides, right, even as it draws closer to the US.
Well, that is my next question, because they may be friends, but Vietnam would like to think that they have a balanced foreign policy. But how difficult will it be for Hanoi, to pursue cordial links with Russia on one hand, and yet not complicate ties with its other countries like the US and China?
Right, thank you. I think that is the challenge for all states in Southeast Asia, really, right? To balance the relationship between both the US and with China, which are important partners for the region, right? And in economic as well as strategic terms. So each country is really doing its utmost to balance these ties. But regionally, I would say that Vietnam has been doing fairly well in this regard. In addition to Singapore, for instance.
Yeah. Let's move to North Korea next. That's where Putin is heading. There are reports that the two sides signed a new treaty providing what's being called mutual assistance in case either country faces aggression. They're calling it a breakthrough. How do you read that statement?
Thank you. Right now, I don't think we have enough details to really tell what this means. And on the one hand, it can be a mutual defense treaty between Russia and North Korea. On the other hand, earlier there were reports calling it a comprehensive strategic partnership instead. And the difference is actually fairly wide. If this were to be a mutual defense treaty, right, then the collective defense clause and concept comes into play, right, which will be a significant difference as opposed to a wider ranging and broad comprehensive strategic partnership. So depending on what exactly it is, the significance of this new treaty will be very different.
So we can't tell, for example, from the little information we have, whether Putin got his ammunitions from North Korea, which is what he wanted. Do we know then what North Korea got from the visit?
Right. So right now, there's really no public information to know what North Korea has been getting. Although in exchange for munitions, especially, right, Russia has been getting things like food shipments as well as other types of resources. But key here is whether or not and to what extent Russia is doing transfers of weapons technology to North Korea. And this is one big goal that Kim Jong-un has been eyeing, right, in light of the increased ties with Russia.
Absolutely. I mean, Russia, how likely is Russia actually to give over such advanced technology that North Koreans, as you mentioned, really want? Why would it give over such sensitive missile, space and nuclear technology? Perhaps it may promise, but it's hard to really believe.
That's right. So when it comes to such technological transfers, then generally and naturally, it will be easier to transfer simpler technologies, okay, as opposed to the more complex and more sensitive strategic technologies. And I would say that right now, it seems to me that Moscow does not have an obviously weak hand, right, in terms of its war in the Ukraine as well as its ties with North Korea, such that this likely means that North Korea's contributions to Russia are not critically vital for the Russian-Ukrainian war at this stage. Therefore, I would say that at this price point, it is unlikely that Putin will be transferring the more sensitive technologies to North Korea just yet, right? Especially for the nuclear-related technologies.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's broaden the discussion slightly, because I'm curious as to how Putin's trip to North Korea and Vietnam are going to be viewed by the US, China, and even South Korea, who warned Putin against stepping beyond this unspecified red line. These countries will be watching very closely, especially China, who seems a little bit on the outside looking in now.
Wow, this is a very large question with many different variables. Briefly, I would say that US allies in the Asia-Pacific are generally not so concerned about Russia, unlike US allies in Europe, definitely. Right? So depending on what treaty has been agreed between Putin and Kim, if this were a comprehensive strategic partnership, then the calculations of the US allies in the Asia-Pacific are likely only affected to the extent to which such adds to North Korean capabilities. On China's part, its concerns are more likely whether Russia therefore acts as a spoiler to the Chinese-North Korean relationship, or whether there will be a greater tripartite strategic convergence between Russia, North Korea, and China. And here, the latter is by no means a guarantee. Generally speaking, China values stability more than disruption, which may not be quite true for Russia and North Korea. And thus, going forward, it may very well even be the case that the West and the rest of the world expects China to play a larger role to restrain Russia and North Korea. Having said that, if today's agreement between Putin and Kim were a mutual defense treaty, then this changes things, and most of all for Europe, right? Because if this were a collective defense treaty, then that has further implications for the war in Ukraine.
That's very interesting, depending on the nature of the treaty, obviously. But either way, there's not much the West can do to stop these relationships, as both North Korea, the most sanctioned country in the world, as well as Russia, both heavily sanctioned, is there?
That's absolutely right. Right. So, and then therefore the China point, right? China will have greater influence with Russia and North Korea. So, better ties between China and the West would therefore help to alleviate some of these pressures.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Chang Jun Yan, Assistant Professor and Head of the Military Studies Program at RSAIS, weighing in there.